Hey Pete, finally getting around to doing my entry into your Weng's Chop contest. Hopefully I'm not too late getting this in, and if not, oh well. You'd asked me to go ahead and do a video and give my thoughts anyway, so I'll post this to you. And, even if it's not in time to meet the comment or make the contest, that's okay. You can at least check it out and get my thoughts either way. So, anyway, as we discussed recently on Facebook, I really don't read any of the horror publications, which is why I wasn't even going to do an entry, but you talked me into it. Like I mentioned, I get pretty much all of my horror news and stuff from either people's videos on YouTube or doing my own research online. There's not much access in the town I live in to too many horror publications outside of Fangoria. And as I mentioned then, and I'll mention again, I'm just not a big fan. I do have one to show off, and it's a newer copy of Fangoria. And I essentially only picked this up for the article with Herman Yao, who directed The Untold Story and the Ebola Syndrome, because I wanted to read that article. I have picked up a Fangoria every now and then, but not a magazine I'm thrilled with. I'm familiar with some of the other publications, but it's just simply they're not available here. I suppose I could have ordered them online, but I've never thought to do so. So pretty much this is probably going to be the crappiest entry into your contest so far, but that's about all I got to say about publications. As far as talking about a few of the new indie directors that, I've been reasonably impressed with, I was able to come up with a few of those to share. You may be familiar with most or all of these people, but I'll give my 2 cents anyway. The first guy I'd like to talk about is Jason Eisner, who directed his debut as Hobo with a Shotgun, which I think everybody has seen at this point. If you haven't, you've probably been living in a cave somewhere. He also did some of the work on, I think, VHS 1 and 2. I don't have either of those, but based on Hobo with a Shotgun, I am looking forward to, what he's going to do on his own next, because I really enjoyed this film. The next guy I'll talk about is Scott Swan, who actually wrote the screenplay for Cigarette Burns, which is the film John Carpenter directed for the Masters of Horror, the first series. But anyway, this is his debut film called Big Junior. It's sort of in that extreme category or what have you. I've talked about it a bit before. It's kind of about a drug deal gone wrong, but I thought for being kind of a no-budget movie, I really enjoyed it. So I'm curious to see what Scott will be doing in the future as well. So another guy to maybe look into. The next one is the Soska sisters, Jen and Sylvia Soska from Canada. I believe they're Canadian. I love their first film, Dead Hooker in the Trunk. Not really a horror film, but it's really funny, very indie. I just thought it was awesome. And then, of course, I have their follow-up that I think people are a little more familiar with, American Mary. I love the story and the concept. I wasn't totally thrilled with the execution, but I still thought it was okay. Not great, not as good as their debut. But they've done enough at this point that I'm really curious to see what they'll follow this up with. So the Soska sisters to me are another, the newer people out there to just keep an eye on, in my opinion. The next sort of indie director that I've really enjoyed several of his films, and I have a few of them, is I believe he's from Ohio. His name is Dustin Mills. I've got one of his early films, The Puppet Monster Massacre. It's basically a puppet film. Really funny, sort of, Meet the Feebles type thing, to give you an idea. Really funny stuff, though. A lot of puppet gore, which always cracks me up. So that's Puppet Monster Massacre. My favorite Dustin Mills film so far, Night of the Tentacles. Again, some really funny lines in it. He does use a little bit of CGI, but he isn't overdone. But really, for an indie type of film, really entertaining. This one's about a guy who's got a heart condition, and he makes a deal with the devil to live forever, but he's got to feed this heart that lives in this little box. And so he's got to start knocking people off. But I mean, there's just a lot of really funny lines in it, and the gore is pretty good for the low budget independent stuff. So it's another Dustin Mills film that I think is worth checking out. And then the last Dustin Mills film I actually did a review of recently, called Bath Salt Zombies. It's actually got Dave Parker from YouTube in it as well. But again, it's funny. It's got kind of a fun punk rock soundtrack. It's got some good gore. It's got some ridiculous humor. I mean, some of the acting at times is a little sketchy, but it's a fun movie. I mean, Dustin Mills, if you're into stuff that's kind of funny and fun, I think he's worth checking out and looking into. And then the last director that I'm going to talk about is a Canadian director called Ryan Nicholson. This was his debut short film called Torched. This one was a little different than his other work. It's pretty serious. It's very gory. Kind of a rape revenge thing. A lot of really well done gore though. And then the other films are kind of more his normal style. I have Hanger, which in some respects is kind of a rape revenge story. There is some triple X stuff in this particular cut. This is a very limited edition. But basically does a lot of like kind of corny humor, black humor, kind of sometimes has an 80s feel. This one I felt had a little bit of a grindhouse feel even to it. Again, some of the acting is suspect at times, and they're very low budget, but the big thing is his gore effects are really well done, I think. And of course, the one most people are familiar with is Gutterballs, kind of an 80s throwback sort of thing. There's a killer in a bowling alley. Again, a lot of the humor is hilarious. A lot of the kills are unique and hilarious. And, I'm just a fan of his films. Some people are not, and I can understand it, but I think they're good fun. And then the last of Ryan's films I have to show is one of his newer ones called Famine. This is a German Blu-ray, which is I think about the only way you can get it on Blu-ray. But again, this one is about it takes place in a high school. It's got some quirky acting. It's probably not one of my favorites, but it is funny. It's got some funny moments. The gore is, again, fantastic. So basically, to wrap it up, Pete, like I say, I would recommend, if you haven't looked into Jason Eisner, the Soska sisters, Justin Mills or Ryan Nicholson. I think they're fun. They're worth looking into, and I'm not, as you know, I'm not big on a lot of new horror, but these were people that I thought were worth at least paying attention to. So anyway, man, that's pretty much all I got for my entry. Like I say, sorry on the first half of the thing I didn't have a lot to really say there, but I did think I'd, show off a few up and coming indie directors that I thought were worth looking at. So anyway, Pete, again, great contest. I'll PM you the link to this. Hopefully that works out right. And that's about it, man. So I'll catch you later. Bye.